Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Batman Caped Crusader Season 1, Episode 4. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. I think it's funny. I literally made this point last episode, considering the whole Bruce beating up cop situation last episode. I was like, oh, I wonder what the public sentiment is about Batman. And top of the episode, we see what the sentiment is. The city overall is scared and nervous about him. Obviously, the whole notion of him being a vampire, even Montoya referring to him as dressing like Dracula. But it's understandable. There's people afraid to go out at night. I mean, to be fair, Gotham is Gotham, so there's that. But he's just making it worse. But we see some kind of, some ne'er-do-wells be like, fact is he's beating up some bad cops. So it's mainly negative, but there's some people being, because a decent amount of people, even though it was like one group we saw that was like, yeah, the cops are bad, so let him do whatever he's doing. But, I don't know how well known the GCPD corruption really is known. So I think it's interesting because I'm curious what is Bruce's mindset, because I brought it up last episode. He just doesn't care because all he has is his mission. But maybe it is, maybe that's being short-sighted on my part. Maybe he is a little short-sighted in the capacity of he doesn't care about his reputation, because his reputation will make his job that much harder. To be fair, maybe he knows I will never get the entire police force on board with what I need to do, what I'm going to do. Not like I need them anyway. I don't need their permission. I'm going to do what I'm going to do. But I think the argument could be also maybe it's his way of being well, why try and cooperate? I said, the cops will never view me as an asset and an ally, so who cares? Why I don't have to worry about burning that bridge, because they're all in someone else's pocket. There's a lot of corruption, but as we know, there are quite a few good cops, not just Gordon, not just Montoya. But so it does seem like it leans probably more so from the other side of things, are just I don't care, I have my mission and I have blinders on and I'm not thinking this through. So the mayor is putting a lot of pressure on Gordon to lead a task force to take down Batman, because it's right, he beat up cops, and because it's front page news, it embarrasses them, especially because it makes the mayor look bad, especially later on when his task force that he built when he made this proclamation, because he's using this as kind of his campaign of right, if I'm able to take down this new threat in Gotham, then everyone's going to vote for me. And Dent's able to use this as oh man, look at the mayor, he's not doing a good enough job. Him and his task force can't even handle one person. So there's that. But Montoya was in charge of the task force because Gordon trusts her, and out of any other cop we've seen so far, she seems the most capable, which obviously Bullock and Flash have the biggest issue with that, of course. So she's the one that comes up with a plan, right, let's use the bat as bait. Let me just use bait to come after the bat. And so they have all these staged crimes, and they're they thought a couple cries out for help would make the bat help, but it's no, Bruce is keeping an eye on things. He sees all right, there's a police car not too far away from here, because they didn't think of right, man doesn't just operate from the streets. His real thing is operating from the shadows of rooftops, so they didn't really have that place covered. And so so Bruce does take a chance where it's okay, this could be a real crime, but as long as I stick to the shadows, I'll be fine. And he just grapple hooks two people, so which turns out they were undercover cops. But nothing they did could work on him. And Montoya's right, whatever we had planned is not working. Try to regroup, try to set some shots off in the streets, just to be they bring the bat car out, they try to lay bullets into it, it's bulletproof, it's steamrolling ahead. It's Bat's well too equipped, for the cops to do anything. And some people got a little banged up from the car crashes and stuff, but generally speaking, he just kept it moving. But now it's because of this extra pressure, they have to come at this from a different point of view, because for Gordon, it's the thing of you got to play in the playground as it is if you really want to change it. So for him, it's like, I gotta, like, you can only change the system from the inside, so he needs to keep his job, because he's like, if I don't keep my job, I'm gonna get shipped off somewhere else. And Montoya, you're gonna go back to being treated like the coffee girl here, because it's like, right, even in her position, there are a lot of cops who follow her command. It seems like Flask and Bullock have the biggest issues with her, but I'm sure there are other cops who do. But for the most part, people are just very respectful, like, yo, you're in charge, ma'am, all right, follow your orders. So they ended up bringing in Harleen Quinzel to kind of give like a psychoanalysis of, oh yeah, like he's attracted by the other weirdos. Maybe it's kind of like there's more beyond this, maybe a fetish or two or something. And it's like, oh, how does Renee know Dr. Quinzel? It's like, oh, she's friends with Barbara, because apparently she's one of Barbara's go-to people she calls like eyewitness, like, not eyewitness, but expert testimony type of people, which I was like, interesting, making it so that they're friends. That's going to make that dynamic super interesting in this. Once again, I'm not well versed enough in the comics to know whether or not that is a friendship that does happen from time to time. Obviously, I think about it's a different circumstance, but that happens in the Harley Quinn cartoon, so it's kind of interesting. But like I said, it's like neither one of, like, she's not Harley Quinn yet, and Barbara's not Batgirl yet, but like developing that, it's kind of like I had brought up previously, like how in the Telltale games you make it so that Bruce and Harvey Dent are like best friends, so it makes that betrayal when he kind of goes down the Two-Face route hit harder, because it makes that story even more personable. So it's going to be interesting to see. Like I said, I'm so curious what the what factor is going to send her down the route of becoming Harley. If she, like, once again, there might be a Joker in this continuity we just haven't heard anything about or aren't aware of. But you feel like you would have heard some. I thought I would have heard something by now about there being a Joker, but I don't know. Like I said, that's going to be the really interesting thing to see how she goes about becoming Harley. As I've mentioned previously, I believe it's going to be kind of similar to the Telltale Batman thing, to some capacity of like her trajectory as Harley. But either way, she's sadly Harleen Quinzel's the one who gave Flash and Bullock the idea of, oh, let's get a costume weirdo to bring out the Bat, and they bring out Firebug, which even I thought the character's name was Firefly. Because now I'm also thinking, like, I might be confusing it, because I believe there is a Marvel villain named Firefly. I don't know if he's specifically a Spider-Man villain. I'm pretty sure his name is Firefly. I could be mistaken, but I remember him from like one of the Spider-Man games. I think it was like the Ultimate Spider-Man game. He's one of the bad guy. He's one of the villains in that game, if I'm not mistaken. I distinctly remember fighting him in a different game. If his name is Firefly, but I'm pretty sure it is. But either way, his name's Firebug, so maybe that's supposed to be like why there's a distinction. But like I said, I could have sworn his name was Firefly, but like I said, I could just be mixing him up with the character from Marvel, if that is even that character's name. I think it's so interesting how they depicted that, like the guy's obsession with flames, because he's like, oh, can't you hear it? The flames are calling you. And so when he sees, because I saw that transition in a trailer where like he pulls down his goggles, like everything's fine, everything's great, and then he pulls out his goggles, the buildings are on fire, the people that he sees them as giant like living flames. I'm like, oh, that's so, it's so twisted, but I like that representation of his obsession with fire, that is kind of like, oh yeah, it calls to us. It's this thing, the flame calls to everything. So the fact is that Flash and Bullock don't recognize how effed up that is. Like, hey, let's use this as an excuse. Like, yeah, we're going to get bait for the Bat. You could have gotten someone to dress up like a bad guy, but he's already he's known enough because he's already had the costume and everything. I'd assume he's someone Bruce has never dealt with before. Maybe he's just, there didn't seem to be any association. So actually, because it makes you wonder, like, was Penguin like the first quote-unquote Gotham weirdo that Bruce has taken down in his continuity? We don't know. Just kind of like the Batman. It seems like Riddler wasn't the first person he's taken down. At the very least, he's had a run-in with the Joker before. So we don't know what other villains in that continuity he's taken down. Just like this one, we don't. So just something kind of interesting to think about. Like I said, just nothing screamed that Firebug and him had any prior interaction. So it must have just been the police that took him down. I mean, he's not like some superpowered villain. He's just a pyromaniac. So, which isn't saying much, but like, I mean, he could still be tough to take down. But yeah, I mean, they didn't care about who'd get hurt because all they cared about was what they were going to get out of this. For one, taking out the bat is less of a headache. They have to deal with it. They're kind of treated as like an embarrassment. But I also knew that they could get some kind of raise in status if they were the ones to bring down the bat. So Gordon, obviously not too happy upon hearing this. So he... especially when Barber's like, yo, did you give them orders to transfer a prisoner? He was like, no. Which one? And it's like knowing exactly what they're doing. And what pissed Gordon off the most is like, them doing this is stupid in itself, but now you're dragging innocent cops into this. You're putting innocent civilians in danger with this. Like a whole apartment building was caught on fire. Like, what were you going to do if like innocent people got hurt? That's the thing. Bullock has some reservations, but he still fully goes along with everything because he's kind of like, oh, do you think this is kind of the right thing to do? That's as much of it. Like, this is Flash, like, whole thing, but it's still like Bullock is the one that kind of signs off and co-signs. So I think he is going to be the weaker link of the two in that what I mean is eventually his conscience will get to him and he will start because he, like I said, he's not fully committed because he's like, he has his reservations with all of this. But like I said, he still co-signs so much of like, who cares? You're so busy getting the bat, you're not worried about like, oh, Bruce knocked out a whole bunch of... It's so... I need to stop doing that. Like, when he's Batman, I should just be saying Batman, but it's like, I just keep just calling him Bruce. But yeah, when Batman knocking out your fellow cops, Montoya and Gordon are worried about people that might like get left in the building and died, but like, and sadly kind of... I mean, I guess that's why Bruce, like, he doesn't beat them unconscious. He just beats them enough to slow them down, but not beat them to a bloody pulp. Because he's like, well, I want you to be able to get out of the building, hopefully. But he's not concerned. He's worried about regular people, but once again, he doesn't give a shit about the cops. Because who cares? But also, like, I don't, like, in the regards of, you're not my priority, plus I don't know which one of you might be corrupt anyway, so... I had brought it up previously that I was like, oh, I wonder if they shifting it and making it so that Montoya and Batman have a good relationship instead of Gordon and Batman. But it seems like this is going to be the beginnings of that. It's just like Gordon just doesn't know to trust Bruce yet, Batman. Which I do love that he just showed up at the precinct and Gordon was like, what the fuck? Dropped his cup, start firing off shots. It's like, I guess he wanted to see what the cops really knew and how they were approaching this thing. So that's what kind of motivated them to change their playbook on how they were going to handle all of this. And that's when Dr. Quinzel got brought into the whole situation. But Gordon saw a different side of Bruce. Like, he knows... I keep doing that. Sorry, Batman. When it's like, right, you're beating up cops, and you might not be 100% hero. You are a bad guy. Just like Montoya said, you are a criminal, but you are helping people, too. You helped save some kids. You made sure this family got out of the building as well. So him and Gordon worked together. So it's the beginning of that dynamic we see. Especially when Gordon has to deal with, like, right, someone like Flash and Bullock getting, like... He's on the edges of the fringes of potentially losing everything because later on the mayor, Jessup, ends up giving them promotions to take over the task force. But it's like, Gordon, you saved some kids alive, so we can't really boot our hero cops. So you can stick around, but this is their rodeo now. Give them leeway, whatever runway they need to do what they need to do, and don't get in their way. It's like, well, that's also viable to blow up in your face, but he doesn't care right now because he's so short-sighted on this. Because, I mean, he's believing the narrative that's kind of been out there that, oh, Bullock and Flash are heroes, especially because they killed Firebug. I was kind of thinking Batman might step in time to stop that, but I even thought, like, oh my god, are they going to do a situation where Firebug gets killed and then Batman gets blamed? But it's like, no, everyone clearly saw Bullock there. Specifically, was it O'Brien, the photographer from the Gazette, which... Obviously, my only association with the Gazette, even before now, more recent stuff, was Vicky Vale. She's the only person from the Gazette I'm aware of. And so, I mean, but it kind of made me go, well, to be fair, like, I don't know the entire staff of the Daily Planet either. Just because I know Jimmy and Lois, and in the more recent years, their boss Perry White, because I didn't ever really remember Perry, but I always remember Lois and Jimmy. But now, like, because of my adventures because of Supergirl, I got to learn more about Cat Grant, and in my adventures with Superman, got to learn more about Cat Grant and Steve. So learning more and more about that staff. But yeah, Vicky's my only introduction to. I wonder, like, does he have any correlation or connection to Vicky in any way? Like, maybe she hasn't started at the Gazette yet, or maybe she could be like a paralleling with my adventures with Superman. Maybe Vicky in this particular story could be an intern, or like I said, maybe she just hasn't started working there yet. Oh yeah, there was something I completely forgot to talk about. I brought up this whole continuity of who already exists and who doesn't. They did reference Professor Crane in this, that apparently he was Dr. Quinzel's professor when she was in school. So I was like, interesting. So I'm assuming for her to talk about him with such reverence, meaning he hasn't become Scarecrow yet. But I don't remember if Scarecrow's dad is also a scientist too. Or a doctor too. Because I never thought about that. They both are in like the they are medical professionals in their own capacities. And I was like, never correlated that there might be some crossover there. But like I said, I assume he's not. He's definitely not Scarecrow yet in this continuity. So I don't know if he's going to be one of the villains that pops up later on in this series or not. Or maybe they're just not going to make him a villain yet. Like I said, could he like? I would assume Harley and him would be the same age, but maybe Scarecrow typically is a little older than him. But like I said, it might end up being like Scarecrow's dad or something was her professor. Either way, just once again, these funny like connections between villains. So I just wanted to kind of get that out of the way. But sorry for my diatribe. I think it's still pertinent and relevant just to the conversation of the Gazette and just DC stuff in general. But, and, you know, like, it was all relevant, but still went on a diatribe. I'm sorry. Going back to the Flash and Bullock of it all, I do think it's interesting that when the time came, like I said, it was Flash who said, like, we should take out Firebug. He knows too much. And you saw the look on Bullock's face. He didn't want to do it, but he did it. But now, like, he's with Flash, like, we got this promotion, blah, blah, blah. So he doesn't seem so remorseful. Does beg the question, what will be the thing that kind of pushes him to become a good guy, you know? Or will they just go, nah, screw it, Bullock's going to be like a piece of shit the entire time? I highly doubt that, but we'll see. But it makes things harder for Gordon and Renee, good cops trying to do the right thing. So, and Bruce recognizes that about them. So it's going to be interesting after this episode what his interaction specifically with Gordon's going to be. Montoya made it clear, like, I'm coming after you. But him and Gordon, it's like they kind of worked together, whereas like Montoya and Bruce and Batman didn't really work together in episode 2. She was just kind of someone he could use to get what he needed to take. So it's a different dynamic. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how the next episode plays out with all of this. What other shenanigans Flash and Bullock are going to pull in their pursuit of Batman. But really, that's all I want to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.